Every signal tells a story, but some stories should never have been broadcast. Tonight, you'll hear a mystery that has haunted the shadows for years. Lock your doors! Turn off the light and welcome to Mystery Signal.
There are abandoned houses, there are abandoned roads, and then there are places that should have disappeared completely. Tonight's story is about a radio station that still broadcasts every night at exactly 2:13 a.m. The strange part? The station was destroyed 20 years ago, and everyone who heard its final broadcast vanished. Ethan Carter was 26 years old. After losing his job in Washington, he accepted a temporary maintenance position in a small mountain town called Raven Hollow, West Virginia. The town had barely 2,000 residents. No malls, no theaters, no internet most nights, just forests, mountains, and silence. The caretaker of the lodge warned him, "Never drive near Hill Road after midnight." Ethan Carter laughed. Why? The old man looked away, because that's where station 107.9 used to stand. One rainy night, Ethan drove home after work. The roads were empty. Suddenly, the radio turned on by itself. Static filled the car. "Good evening, listeners." Then a man's voice appeared. "Welcome back to the final broadcast." Ethan checked the screen. 107.9 FM. The voice continued. "If you hear this program, do not look behind you." Ethan laughed nervously. Then he noticed. The rearview mirror showed a woman sitting in the back seat, pale, motionless, her eyes completely black. He slammed the brakes. The seat behind him was empty, but the radio whispered, "She saw you." The next day, Ethan asked the townspeople. Nobody wanted to speak. Finally, an elderly tea seller told him. 20 years earlier, a radio station stood deep in the forest. Station 107.9. During a storm, the station caught fire. 7 employees died. Their bodies were never found. Yet every year, strange broadcasts returned. People who followed the signal disappeared. The station itself had become ruins, but some claimed the lights still turned on at night. Curious, Ethan visited the town library. He found old newspapers. Radio fire kills 7. Another article. Search-ins for missing rescue team. A third article. Broadcasts heard after fire. According to reports, firefighters heard voices coming from inside the burned building. The voices belonged to the dead employees, but the building had already been empty. At exactly 2:13 a.m., the radio inside Ethan's room turned on. Static, then music. The announcer spoke. A slow, distorted piano. "Ethan Carter, thank you for listening." His blood froze. He had never given his name. The voice continued. "Your room has only one door. Knock, knock, knock." Someone stood outside. He opened the door. Nobody, but muddy footprints led inside his room. Ethan discovered 6 townspeople had vanished over the years. Every one of them reported hearing 107.9 FM. Their final words were similar. "They invited me." One missing man left behind a recorder. The tape contained only static. Until the final seconds. A terrified voice whispered, "They are still broadcasting." Then screams, then silence. Ethan met Sarah Collins, a local journalist. She had spent years investigating the station. Her father was one of the missing employees. She showed Ethan an old photograph. 7 workers stood outside the station. One face was scratched out. Nobody knew who that 8th person was. Yet every picture showed him, standing in the background, watching. At midnight, Ethan and Sarah entered the forest. Rain fell heavily. Their radios suddenly turned on. Music echoed between the trees. Then they saw it, the burned radio station. Its windows glowed. Inside, people moved, shadowy figures, as if employees were still working. Dust covered everything, yet the recording equipment was running. Red lights blinked. The microphone activated. A voice said, "Welcome back, Ethan." The room became freezing cold. Chairs moved by themselves. The old clock stopped at 2:13. Then footsteps approached. Slowly, from the hallway. Sarah found employee records. Only 7 workers existed. But there was an unsigned contract. No name, no photograph. Only one sentence. The host arrives after midnight. Suddenly, the studio door closed. A figure appeared. Tall, thin, wearing headphones. Its face hidden in darkness. The voice from the radio spoke through it. "Every station needs listeners." Speakers turned on. The mysterious host began speaking. 20 years ago, the station needed one final program. The listeners stayed. The workers stayed. Now new listeners have arrived. The building began shaking. Voices filled the walls. Hundreds of whispers, all repeating, "Stay with us." Sarah saw her father's shadow. Ethan heard his own voice coming from the speakers. They ran. The station caught fire again, just like 20 years earlier. As they reached the road, the building vanished. Only ashes remained. No lights, no walls, nothing. The next morning, nobody believed them. The forest was empty. The station no longer existed. Months later, Ethan returned to Washington. One night, his car radio activated. Static. Then, a familiar voice. "Good evening, listeners." The display read, 107.9 FM. The announcer whispered. Our broadcast never ended. Then another voice appeared. Priya's voice. "Please don't listen." The signal died. But somewhere, at exactly 2:13 a.m., the station is still broadcasting, waiting for its next listener. If you ever hear a radio station that doesn't exist, turn it off and never answer when it calls your name.